And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. The city of Houston is seeing a new candidate join the race for mayor. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is now in that race. Jackson Lee was first elected to Congress more than 28 years ago in 1994, replacing Craig Washington. If elected, she would become the first black woman to serve as mayor here in the city of Houston. Now, Jackson Lee joins a list of competitors in the Houston mayoral race. Here they are. They include Chris Hollins, Robert Gallegos, Gilbert Garcia, Amanda Edwards, and Senator John Whitmire. Until now, experts argued Senator Whitmire as the most obvious front runner. Tonight, we want to talk about it. Jackson Lee's candidacy with changing the game. Let's turn to our guests who are here on The Factor Uncensored. Political analyst Marcus Davis, Dallas Jones, and Houston City Council member Michael Kubosh. Glad to have you all here on The Factor Uncensored.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
I don't like to say monkey wrench, but there is definitely a change in this race with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee joining.
Amen.
Who will be most likely affected by this, from your perspective? Let's begin with you, Dallas.
Well, I think it affects the entire ticket.
Absolutely.
You know, from top to bottom. You know, Congresswoman has been a long-standing a fixture in Houston politics and national politics, and certainly a name that does not require quite as much cash to garner a name ID that perhaps some of the other candidates will. And so if you're the front runner, it either pushes you down. If you're one of the people of color in this race, it certainly cuts into that part of the electorate and your path to your viable path to victory. And so it literally throws the entire thing into a frenzy, which is why we're sitting here talking about it today.
Exactly. Now, Marcus, Senator John Whitmire, in your opinion, was that the person to lose in this race? Was this his race to lose?
No, that wasn't my opinion. I'll leave that to the others. My opinion is there's an election day, and like they say in basketball, we play the game for a reason. So we have election day for a reason.
But there's always a front runner.
Election day for a reason.
There's always a front runner and someone with name recognition.
Front runners and go to people who want to sit aside with their pencils and their pens and keep score and all that kind of good stuff.
That's me.
At the end of the day, we have a Final Four right now that broke everybody's bracket. Right, so I'm not one that subscribes to this idea of if somebody's to lose. It's the people's race to win. You asked at the opening, who does this affect? One, it affects the citizens because now they have a broader choice of who they want to run this major metropolitan city. Also, it affects the city, which is on the brink of the greatest potential that it's seen in its history. So it affects the people, it affects the city, and most importantly, it affects me and my kids on how Houston's gonna move forward. So it's a wide open race. This does make it a tad bit more interesting. And now, you know, the city needs a depth of leadership. Now they have a depth in this race, and they got to make a decision.
All right, Councilmember Kubosh, your thoughts about this?
Well,
race?
This is exciting times. When I heard that she'd gotten in the race, I said, "Wow!" You know, because if I go to a funeral in her district, if I go to any event in her district, she's there, and always, and she's so gracious. And when people in her district that are leaders get sick, she'll go to the hospital to see them. She is somebody who cares for her district. I told our group at our Christmas party a few years ago when she was there, I introduced her to all of my family and to the crowd that was at the Christmas party, and I said, listen, if I pass anytime soon and she hears about it, she'll be there to give a flag that flew over the Capitol for me. I can promise you she'd do it.
Absolutely. Now, for those who say we are losing a very viable, effective voice in Washington, D.C., what would you say to those people?
Well, I would say that for more than 30 years, as I mentioned, the Congresswoman has been a voice for Houston, for this reach in Congress. And political winds ebb and flow. I mean, we've seen the blueprint for this type of run here recently in Los Angeles, where longtime Congresswoman Karen Bass decided that she wanted to go home and run her city. And so she did. She ran a very tough race against a very well-funded white male opponent, and it came down to the wire, and Congresswoman Bass is now Mayor Bass of LA. And so there's some precedent for this. We understand that there'll be a number of issues that'll play really big in this election, crime being one of them. You know, and I think the Congresswoman will have to look at her record on these issues, look at what she's done in Congress, and I think that's something that she's going to bring to the race and that she's going to lean on in terms of the other people in the race. It's like, here's what I've done. And so it's again, I think I haven't seen the Houston political scene so excited. My phones have been ringing off the wall today. Friends from around the country have gone, you know, what's going on in Houston?
Which is an important point, the friends from around the country, because what she's bringing to this race is national recognition. You know, the rest of the candidates, they are local candidates, right? But Congresswoman Jackson Lee has a national presence, which gives her a different vantage point. But to
really
your question
before
about,
you guys, we lose you guys. One of the things I'm hearing from the average person is why, and they see this as a step down from Congress to mayor.
So, you know, for people who use that as a step up, step down, serving the people is serving the people. There are no steps in up or down in serving the people. If you're a servant of the people, then that's what you are, whether it is in the city, whether it's in the state, or whether it's in Washington, D.C. As to the question about whether or not we're losing a voice in D.C., I think if Congresswoman Lee were to become mayor, we would be gaining a voice that has Washington familiarity, that has Washington relationships, Washington connections, and Washington know-how, which can bode well for a city in particular times. So I don't know that we're losing a voice in Washington. I think we're gaining a voice. We will be gaining a voice in Houston that could echo to D.C.
And remember, she doesn't have to resign to run. Neither did Senator Whitmire. So both of them are able to run without resigning their seat.
Important point.
Only if they're elected would they then have to resign once they're sworn in.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here on The Factor.
Don't lose
Still
us.
ahead. That's Marcus Davis. I can't take him anywhere. He's been on What's Your Point too long.